There's some fantastic things happening in the university, and if today was about nothing else, it's actually showcasing all those fantastic things that are happening and creating an environment where the intersections can happen. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children.
Is actually small businesses are the ones that facilitate local resilience. So if you can focus your research agenda on SMEs, it actually has a very, very significant effect on addressing poverty, because SMEs are the ones that hire local people.
The really unavoidable link between food security and climate resilience and how we're going to manage sustainability. But we still need to worry about the people who are left behind, because if we keep improving things for those who are nearest the target, we leave the furthest behind.
We spend a very large amount of money on our health service, and it isn't very good. We do not get value for money, because health and poverty are tied up together like that. The biggest predictor of your health is the social class of your parents.
How we can use education as a vehicle to enable change and transformations towards our citizens becoming more sustainable.
Then when we say gender, we think of women, and it is a women's problem. And in fact, women becomes the proxy for gender, because if we have an inclusive gender or ecosystem, an inclusive society, that benefits everyone.
It's quite remarkable. Water pouring from the skies does not mean that we have good quality drinking water at readily available levels. We want to understand about pharmaceutical use, pesticide use, organic use in general. Okay? And we want to stop that level of use. We want to push it back on the providers. We don't need all those chemicals.
We have a problem. Fossil fuels must become a thing of the past. The main resource for certainly Ireland is offshore. That is our opportunity. That's where our cheap, very cheap electricity will come from in the future, and that's what can sustain us in the future.
If we don't have per capita growth, where are we going to get the infrastructure from? Where are we going to pay for our health services? And if you think about Ireland and Ireland's future, we're looking at something like 1 million extra people in the population by 2050, or 2040, sorry. That means we need to also generate a lot of extra jobs.
We also produce the right kind of graduates with an industry aware or an entrepreneurship lens through which they view the world. We collaborate so much with industry, we can therefore influence and promote that kind of collaboration to take consideration of these SDGs.
So I guess the reduction of inequality is about transformation. But from a Freirean perspective, the transformation of the self is what creates the transformation of the world. So
the importance of high quality, sustainable infrastructure that doesn't just meet the needs of today, but the needs of our future and future generations.
But sustainable production and consumption, for me at any rate, is not just about reducing waste. Because again, if we keep on doing more and more, then even if we're reducing the amount of waste per unit of what we do, if we keep on doing more and more and more, that offsets essentially our efforts in reducing the intensity of waste, so we still have a problem.
Climate change is real, it's happening, it's us, and we can do something about it.
It covers 70% of the planet. We rely on it for food, energy and water, and yet it is one of our most precious resources that we have utterly destroyed over the last number of decades, particularly through pollution and waste, many of which comes from land activities. This is about adding value to what we get from the sea, and if companies in particular, who are one of the biggest instigators of pollution in the sea, if companies see added value from what they might be able to get back from the sea, they may think a little bit more responsibly about what they put in there.
Reducing degradation of our natural habitat, halting the loss of biodiversity, and being able to integrate biodiversity values into what we do from a planning perspective, nationally and internationally.
Corruption really undermines all efforts to improve the level of these things and indeed the growth rate, right? Because corruption is the abuse of public power for private gain, and it means that efforts to get out of these development traps or low development traps are perhaps fatally undermined by this kind of misgovernance. The freedom of the press is one of the most effective bulwarks we have against corruption and misgovernance. governance. We should be very careful in tolerating anything that stands in its way.
I think it is important not to forget it's not just about our own problems. They are about the global differences, and we can play a significant role in that regard.
It's everybody's area now. And I think we really just need to kind of acknowledge that and move on. And whether or not you're studying it or researching it yet, everyone has an opportunity to bring some flavour into their teaching or their volunteer work for the college or some level of administration.
There is no plan B because we only have one planet. There is no planet B. So we're talking about serious matters, and I think the level of engagement today, the level of attendance all day long, we're feeling that, and it means that there's a real commitment across all parts.
The central problem that we now recognise in the world is the conflict between the needs of the human population to well-being and welfare and the planetary limits, the material limits to what the planet can sustain.